lovely godson who is live streaming at 6 p.m. and I don't want to compete with him. Jackson. Anyway, listen. Let's find out where everybody's from. This will be interesting since it's a different time of the evening. Russia? I mean, it's got to be, what time is it in Russia? It has to be so late. Well, Winnipeg, you're kind of like, well, you're on mountain time, I believe, so you're okay. England, it's pretty late in England, I think. My impression is that would be like midnight in England. Ireland, me Irish people. Brazil, it's going to be a little earlier in Brazil. I think so. Okay, San Diego, that makes sense. India. Well, this is fantastic. We have not gotten India before. I don't believe we've had too much India. So this is great. Venezuela. Oklahoma, unfortunately. Why unfortunately? What's wrong with Oklahoma? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Germany, England. Coushatta, Louisiana. I think I said that right. That's kind of cool. Prague. Australia, again. New Zealand. Texas. Sydney. Oh, it's morning time in Sydney. Okay, that's cool. It's morning time 2 days from now, if I'm not mistaken. I can't get it figured out. I mean, I have flown to Australia so many times, and it confuses me endlessly. Finland, Spain, more Australia, Budapest. Well, see, I'm kind of surprised that we got so much Europe here. Tokyo. This is fantastic. Tokyo. So this is interesting. So we're getting a little more of Japan, China, a little more of India, a lot of places that it was too early in the morning to nail on the other things. Well, anyways, for those of you joining me for the first time, I was a formerly incarcerated quarantine patient. No, I did not have COVID, but I came to Canada to shoot a show, and they demanded a 14-day quarantine. And so that's what I did. I did a 14-day quarantine. And guess what? I was in a hotel room where the windows didn't open, and there was no patio, and I can't say I really liked it. It was pretty miserable. And luckily, I did not destroy the hotel room, which is kind of what I wanted to do originally. But people seem to have liked it, so they said, are you going to stop live streaming? And I said, no, I won't stop live streaming if you guys enjoy it. So I said, fine. Although I didn't make any announcements to that effect. And I will try to in the future. So today, first day of freedom. Or no, it was technically yesterday afternoon. This is what I did. I got on a bicycle. And Jason got on a bicycle. And cruised around. And had a hamburger. And I think I screamed like a little girl. And I had a bunch of beer. And I had fun, is what I had. Freedom, baby. That's what freedom tastes like. A cheeseburger and beer. That's what freedom tastes like for all those people wondering what it's like. That's what it tastes like. And I had a really good time. So went to bed, and weirdly enough, guess what? I could not sleep at all. Didn't sleep a wink. I had stuff on my mind that I could not get out of my mind, and I couldn't sleep. And I also had to wake up early for wardrobe fitting. And sometimes when I know I have to wake up early, like I have a hard time going to sleep. But anyways, so nonetheless, a little more tired today, and but it's all good. And so here I am, and I'm going to get into it, baby. So anyways, I will, first of all, I want to thank you guys all for joining, and let's see what we have here. Too excited to sleep. I don't know if I was too excited to sleep. I don't think that was it. I had crap on my mind. Not really good crap, just crap. But you know what? You guys send me notes, and I kind of like those notes. And this one guy sent me a note, and his name is HPTM Boomstick. HPTM Boomstick. Boomstick. I like that. Anyways, he says, and he makes a good point. Part of moral and ethical courage is the fair application of whatever standard you are applying to a group of people, regardless of the effect on yourself or your schema. He said schema. Um, when, in the course of condemning our bicameral legislator, it is necessary to highlight the rot of both parties. Throwing out an example of one person in one party is hardly courageous. People do that all the time. Throwing out an example of one's own party, the Dems are obviously yours, he says, and he's going to be surprised that they're not, is necessary. There's a metric shit ton of soulless whoring on the Dem side. Well, boomstick. I think that was well put. I think your point is well received. Couple things I want to tell you. You're going to be surprised. I'm not a Democrat. I've been a Republican. Correct. I've been a Republican for a really long time. I'm not a social conservative, any stretch of the imagination, but I've been a Republican. I worked for Republicans. I worked at the Republican National Committee. I worked in a Republican White House. I worked for a Republican U.S. Senator. My street cred, if I have any street cred, would be with what was formerly Republicans. Nonetheless, you're absolutely right. You have to roast both sides. There's only one thing, boomstick, and that is I hold the people in power to be more accountable. So the people that are running things, and that is the White House and the Republican-controlled Senate, they are in the crosshairs of what I consider constructive criticism. If the Democrats take over, you can rest assured I will roast them too. But I am not roasting the other side. I'm actually roasting my side. I am ashamed of my party. I am disgusted by them. I want nothing to do with these people. They make me sick. And I told you, they lack testicular fortitude. And I think Donald Trump represents nothing the Republican Party used to be, at all. There is nothing that he represents that is in any way connected to what formerly was the Republican Party. And so I take your point. I think it's a good point. It's a little off. People are surprised that I was in fact a Republican. I grew up that way. So there was part of that default system. But as I've gotten older and as I have failed and succeeded and failed and gone through various cycles, I probably become a little bit more liberal. I think I do, because I think it is tremendously hard out there. And I think that if we don't have a social contract that we all agree to, then what the fuck are we? I mean, God, we're just a collection of people and it's like some jungle and it's everybody out for themselves. No, there has to be some sort of social contract. And I think that this particular election, if it goes the way that many people believe, which is Trump losing, it will be a referendum on that. It'll be a referendum on, like, look, we are all in something together and we're going through something difficult together, and we have to create a system that actually helps everybody together. And there can't be this balkanized thing going on in our country where we're just fractured into multiple identity groups and what have you. And listen, you want to complain about the Democratic Party, I can do it all day long. I can complain forever about them. They are responsible for a lot of the balkanization. And by the way, grievance politics with identity politics, it's really about grievance, and some are very legitimate, and you have to give it to them. Slavery, yeah, it's a legitimate grievance. I don't care how long ago it was. It hasn't had a major impact, and it still has the kind of horrible residue years and years and generations later, and that's our original sin. But if there are tons of identity political groups, they all seem to have a grievance. My issue is you need to see yourself first in the context of the larger mosaic of being American, then your identity. And all Donald Trump did is he took grievance politics, victim politics, and he applied it to white people. And now white people are the ones complaining about being victimized. Fine, but they sound pretty annoying if you ask me. And you know who sounds even more annoying than anybody is Donald Trump, who complains about everything. He's a victim of everything. He complains that he gets terrible news coverage, blah, 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 blah. You know what? It's like, shut up. Of course you do. You want the power and privilege of the office, you have to take the responsibility. That's what I say. So I think your point is good. And just wait. We'll see how the election goes. And then I will gladly apply my scintillating wit on the Democrats, who really are world-class buffoons. You know, what I've heard this phrase, a Democrat is somebody who would never vote for themselves. They know how to lose better than anybody. Now, and you got to give it to the Republicans. The Republicans are insane. The Republicans can fight the dirtiest campaigns. And I just want you to know that I briefly worked for Lee Atwater, who was famous for that, and he actually kind of created the negative campaign. If you remember, like George Bush Sr.'s run for presidency, and there was, I forgot the name of some criminal they let out, whatever. I just want you to know that Lee Atwater died relatively early, and he died, and on his deathbed, he was so painfully sorry for what he did. He was, doing lots of mea culpas, and like, oh my God, I can't believe I did this. I feel like I've done the wrong thing. Well, that's a really interesting thing, I mean, hey, come on. So, Willie Horton, somebody just said, you're absolutely right, Willie Horton. It was Willie Horton. So, anyway, I just want to say that here's what I want to do today, and this might be a doable thing. And I don't want anybody to be scared. But if there is a Trump supporter out there who would like to come on with me, I would love to talk to them. And don't worry, I will not embarrass you or humiliate you or be rude or anything else. I would like to talk to you. And conversely, I'm happy to have a Biden supporter come on and talk to them. So if somebody out there wants to identify themselves as a Trump supporter, I will bring them on. And you're in good hands. You don't have to worry. But I want to show you that you can have conversations. Presumably, we can have these conversations. I think you can, but maybe not. But by the way, there's always, there's a safe word. We have a safe word. And the safe word is
Puddle jump.
Beer. So if you buy me a beer, I just immediately give up on the conversation. I say, you won, and I'll take my beer. Okay. Let's see. Somebody just voted, not for Trump. I don't think I'm going to have a shortage of Biden supporters here. But let's try. You know what? Either one. Somebody identify themselves as either a Biden or a Trump supporter. Just say Biden or Trump. I will click you on. You come on. We have fascinating, witty dialogue. People's perceptions are changed forever, and it's amazing. So let's see. Oh, there's a Canadian out there. Well, listen, I don't mind. You don't have to be American. You do not have to be American to have this discussion. This is something else. I think American politics transcends our particular area and affects the rest of the world. Okay, so we have plenty of Biden supporters. Okay, Joe Jorgensen. Okay, I'll just click on a Biden supporter real fast, and we'll talk to them. Let's see. Go live. And going live with our Biden supporter. Hello.
Hey, Joe.
How are you? I love how you say that. It's like, it's so familiar. It's like, hey, Joe. It's like we met before.
Well, actually, you wished my husband and I a 38th wedding anniversary on Cameo.
Ah, how was
Yes, it was wonderful. It was
Good.
wonderful.
Good.
And I am a Biden supporter.
Okay.
I classify myself as a reformed Republican
Oh, okay.
because uh, all the
Did you
things
vote
that
for? I'm sorry. Did you vote for who did you vote for in 2016?
I voted for Trump.
You did. Okay. Now this is interesting. Okay. So, and presumably Hillary Clinton is not the most desirable candidate in the world. Um, and when you voted for Trump, did you think he was gonna get in office and like kind of tack back to the center and be like, "Hey, I know I'm doing this little show, but now let's get real and let's do something"?
Yeah, and I felt like we got sold a bill of goods because he just, a lot of people think he kept his promises. As far as my husband and I are concerned,
Yeah.
he didn't. He did.
Good.
He did not keep his promises.
So your husband's in the same boat.
Yes.
Okay. And where do you guys live? Where are you from?
We live in Owings Mills, Maryland.
Okay. And do you think there are other people in your community like you, or do you think you guys are unusual?
I think there are a lot more of us than there are of them.
Okay. So Trump disappointed you.
Yes.
And in the way, in what particular way? In a that he's not trying to unite people, or that he's has the wrong agenda, or what?
All of the above. I think he may have started out with good intentions, but just got caught up in his rhetoric and didn't keep his promises to people. And what really killed me was when he threw the Kurds under the bus.
Oh,
Basically, he just abandoned people who were supporting us and just abandoned them. And a lot of people died because of that. And
that's a good point. And that's the first time I started hearing military people speak out against the president, saying this is antithetical to American values of loyalty. That was, there's so many things. Like, I think we're all kind of burned out a little by how much drama we've been engulfed in for 3 years. That when you say like the courage, you're like, oh yeah, that seems like a lifetime ago, because there's been so many other issues since then. So there's just this fatigue where everybody's just like, oh my god.
it's not just a physical fatigue; it's mental and emotional. I mean, it's just uh, you know he's just horrible. He's just an awful person. He's showing his true colors now, and who would want? Personally, I wouldn't want somebody like that representing me. And I feel he no longer represents the true Republican spirit.
No, I don't. I think it's about something else, and personally, I think it's the cult of personality more than it is any kind of set of philosophy or policies. And it is. It's like, and that's true with a lot of demagogues. It's like you get ensconced by this, incredible, like this. You get into a trance, and you're just like, that's my guy. And so, well, that's really interesting. And so that's a good way to start this conversation. I've got some people coming up that are Trump supporters. I got a person here that's undecided.
Oh.
Jimmy Mac Kip. I'm going to buzz you. I'm going to talk to the undecided guy. See if we can convince him.
Thanks for taking the time to speak with us.
Well, I'm really happy you're here, and thank you for joining me.
Say hi, John.
Hello. How are you, sir? All right, you guys stay warm, stay good, stay safe.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay. Okay, that is very fascinating. And by the way, I can't tell half the time whether I don't know what happens to this. It seems to just blitz out when I want to do this. Anyways, let's go to the undecided Jimmy. Here we go, baby. Hey, how are you, Jimmy?
You and I know each other. My sister's Judith GMO, and I'm good friends.
No, Jimmy, you're Jimmy. That Jimmy? Oh my
That's me,
God!
dude.
Okay, and I was like, of course I know the whole family.
Yeah,
In fact, one of my favorite families in all of Malibu.
fucking A right. And my best mate Cooper Shell, he's also your best mate.
Yeah, that's actually the first time I met you. We all went surfing together, and you said, "Hey, maybe you know my sister up there in Malibu," and I was like, "Yeah, of course I do."
Yeah, everybody knows Judith and Dominic for sure.
Well, they're pretty special. They're awesome people. I love them to death. And also Dexter and Theo are awesome kids.
Sure.
I love them.
Oh, for sure.
Like Dexter was like my fourth son for years.
I know.
It was incredible. Yeah, he went everywhere with us. Spent the summers with us.
I know.
But anyways, I don't want
to. And Truman, I know all about him.
Yeah, so this is a guy who knows my family. So
okay.
now you can really insult me. But anyways, so listen.
Yeah.
You see what we're doing. You're undecided. So tell me what you're undecided about.
So my whole life I voted Democrat up until Hillary.
Okay.
Right? I couldn't go there. And
right.
and my reason being was, and still is, elect clowns, you can expect a circus. Right. And kind of that's where we were then, and it seems like that's where we are now, right?
So the way I described it, and you can tell me if you thought of this, I thought the choice between Hillary and Trump was like, what would you like, your arm cut off, your leg cut off? Now, for me, Hillary was the leg, and Trump was the arm. So I went with, Trump was the leg, and Hillary was the arm. So I went with Hillary. Not happy about it, but I totally understand when people didn't want to vote for Hillary. I totally get it.
Right. So I voted for Trump, and I'm not happy about that vote. I'm not happy about that vote, and I'm not happy with what we all got as Americans from everybody who made that vote.
So did you also think that he was on a campaign and it was kind of a joke, but then when he got into office, he would settle into something serious also?
Well, I think maybe I'm naive in thinking and believing, but I'm thinking that the job of president or the position of president is not a position where the buck stops with me, right? It's kind of, you have this system of how things operate within the system of government, and the president is just playing his role in that system. So the system will endure, whether or not it's Hillary or Bill. Right?
So you don't think that there are genuine threats to certain institutional integrity and to certain constitutional norms that have been flouted? You think the system will bounce back? Because the one argument against that is that, look, this is a guy who's actually stacking the system for himself.
Yeah,
and he's got an attorney general, doing things. And so, I kind of feel like the system is, I feel like the first time in my life, the system's kind of failing.
Right. I totally agree. And if my candidate was running for president this year, which is Tulsi Gabbard, if she was in, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. And I think a lot of people would be feeling as disenfranchised by their poor choice in Biden, let's say, if they had a candidate who was completely honorable across the board. Just yesterday with Biden and what shook down with Hunter. Every dad wants to help his son. Me, no different than you, and Biden, no different than with his son Hunter. But with what shook down with that, we all knew what was going to shook down with that.
Yeah.
And we knew that's it's just another well-timed thing that happened as far as the chess moves in politics. But there's no good guys, right? Trump is not a great guy. He's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And Biden is not a great guy, and he's a piece of shit.
It's actually, some people say that he's watered down and ineffective, but a good guy. So it's like, I think, like on a person-to-person basis is all I'm
Do
saying.
we want to?
I don't know that because I don't know.
But Joe, do we want a watered down guy? Right?
I don't know. So like, look at, for me, and a lot of people don't do this. Like if you actually write down the pros and cons of things, and you scratch through like all the pros and cons of this choice, that choice, you sometimes arrive at a different decision than you do with your gut. And I've done that, and I measured things, and I think that more years with Trump, in my mind, is too damaging to the system, actually. And I'm afraid the system won't survive if he continues on. If I did think it would survive, I'd actually be like a little less worried about it. I'd be like, all right, we got to, we'll see what happens. But I honestly think that, you're talking about a guy who is openly, like, flagrantly violating, like, rules and norms and stuff and getting away with it. And so, and some of his friends that he's part of.
Away with it. Joe, I don't think he's getting away with it. I just don't think that he gives a fuck. Right?
Well, I would agree with you. There's a complete lack of sophistication in his kind of like trespasses. And unlike Bill and Hillary, who were sophisticated about it, and they could get away with all sorts of stuff because they were slick about it, and they would, still enrich themselves, but still like, be in the service of something. So I understand like why people didn't like the Clintons a lot. They were corrupt. But you're really undecided. I mean, you're not going to get any new information between now and then. You know who he is.
I promised Jude and Dominique that I'm going to vote on the platform of the environment, and I think that everybody should do that. So if I'm going to vote on the platform of the environment, I've got to vote. I've got to vote with Biden.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And so, see, I have a lot of friends that I tell you, I have a lot of friends with different political persuasions. Some of them are Trump supporters, and they enjoy the outdoors with me. And I often say to them, I'm like, you realize that like the environmental situation is not good with Trump. So that's funny. So you're undecided, but you're leaning into.
No, look at I'm undecided. I promised my sister that I'm going to vote for Biden, and me being a man of my word, I'm going to vote for Biden, right? But
well, you might want it because she cooks a damn good meal, and you want to still get invited up there.
For sure, I don't want to be canceled by my own sister.
But isn't it weird? It's the first time in my memory where families have really been torn apart by their political opinions. It's really weird.
For sure. I have a friend who basically disowned me because I would even consider voting for Biden. Right?
Well, what's interesting is I've given Cooper a little bit of a hard time for not voting because he didn't like either choice, and I said not voting is a vote for Trump.
Oh, for sure. So I have to vote, right?
Yeah.
So look, I think my point, Joe, is, and maybe I was disingenuous by saying I'm undecided when clearly I've made my choice. But the fact of the matter is, Joe, I've made my choice, but I think my choice fucking sucks. I think that Biden is that and all of that, and I think that Pelosi is that and all of that, and I think that the system is that and all of that, and then if we go with the third party, right. I think now we're going in triangles and we're going in three directions. That doesn't sound good. So
look, I don't. As they say, don't let the good be the enemy of the perfect. Or whatever. Don't be the perfect, be the enemy of the good, whatever it is. But I mean, politics is always about the attainable. It's not about the ideal. And so politics never feels fully satisfying from anybody's standpoint.
No, dude.
So you just have to get down with that. And, that's part of the genius of politics in some ways. It's like, it is like making sausage. You just have to put all the parts in and eat it because that's the way it is. But I think at the end of the day, you have to, even the people I really disagreed with, I never questioned that they had our country's interests at first, in foremost in their heads.
Right.
And this is the first guy where I'm like, actually, he really does. He's got his own interests first and foremost, and then there's us, and so that scares me.
I asked Jude to tell you the story of Barack Obama and Clooney.
Uh-oh.
The phone call.
Another Hollywood liberal, connection.
I'll tell you the story, but I won't tell you who told the story. So the story is that Barack Obama called Clooney, and this was in 2018.
Yeah.
And Obama said to Clooney, "Hey, we got nobody. The fucking Democratic Party is a desert. We got nobody. You tell me you're interested, I will tee up the nomination for you." And Clooney, if you know him.
Yeah, he's got. There's too much. I think there's things in his private life that he just wants to keep.
For
running.
sure, dude. For sure.
Yeah.
He's got the checkered past.
Yeah.
But he's got a mind that's in the right.
Well, he's a fundamentally decent guy. He's a good guy. I mean, I've met him a number of times. I think he's a good guy, but I don't know that the world is ready for a celebrity. It's just too easy a target, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But I'm going to conclude right now, Joe, because I know that you have other things to do, and I really do appreciate you.
I'm just psyched you joined. I didn't think any of my friends were joining. It's good to know.
Here I am.
And now I gotta follow you too.
Follow me on my other account, which is really more of my.
Well, just you DM me, and then we'll go from there. All right, pal.
Hey, one more thing.
Good luck.
One more thing.
Glad I converted you to Biden.
Yeah.
Take care.
Hey, Tulsi Gabbard.
Oh,
Tulsi
okay.
Gabbard.
Okay. See you later.
See ya.
All right. That's pretty interesting that I just randomly picked somebody out after all these people, and it was him. And that's really cool, actually. Okay, so look there's a guy named Jay Lom-Cloven, whatever. Okay, he said something that got me interested and pinned his mark. He said, the Democrats are openly Marxist and Joe is riddled with dementia. That may be true, but not because of the Democrats. So I'm going to try to get him on the line because he clearly is probably a Trump supporter. So hopefully he's still online with us. We'll see. We're waiting for him. What is that music? Oh, here we go. Oh, wow. What's going on? How are you? You're pretty good. Your comment piqued my interest. I just want you to know that I do have dementia, but it's not the same dementia because of the Democrats.
Wow. Well, I want to be straight up with you. It'd be really cool to talk to you. I hate that it's about politics, but I'm a huge fan. Stargate Atlantis is
right. But it's okay. I mean, I think we can disagree without disliking people. I really think we got to get back to that place.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But anyways, you tell me what you think. Okay, you think that the Democrats are so left of left that it's a disaster?
Well, not all of them, but there's
Okay.
a lot. And my personal belief, and the belief that a lot of people I've talked to are kind of agreeing with me, is Joe is basically the old kind of Democrat. Joe's been in Washington for 47 years.
Right.
It's been a while. And Joe is just to the point where, we've all seen the gaffes on the news, everyone else, where he has trouble remembering his wife's name. He has trouble remembering that. And I don't necessarily think that's the most dangerous part. You see, what I'm worried about is that if he gets in there, he's going to be very malleable to the far left. The AOCs and
what makes you think that? What in his past has proven to you that he's susceptible to left-wing stuff?
Well, you can look at what he's doing right now. I mean, he never used to support stuff like, when he was in Washington, he never supported things like the Green New Deal, like ending fracking on our soil, trying to...
But then don't you think that should make you feel better that he didn't? Because shouldn't that make you feel better that in reality, when he practices his politics, it's more moderate?
And he never used to go along or believe any of that. But then if you noticed, when And this has happened recently. I'm sure you've seen the Democrats have gone way more left wing than they ever have before. And as they went further left, I started to see him agreeing with it. Just like
Do you think that he can survive without giving some rhetorical support to the left wing? I mean, every party, and I've worked on a few presidential campaigns, each party, it's tricky. You've got to get the nomination, which means you got to appeal to the extreme of the party. But then after you get nominated, you try to go center. But because of this
exactly
election,
right. No, that's why he wouldn't answer the question in the debate about they packed the court. And that's exactly what you're saying, is he's trying to tie that middle ground between the moderates and the hardcore leftists. And unfortunately, the hardcore left in this country has already proven that they don't know any bounds. I mean, the Constitution to them is not important anymore. I mean, we're talking about, full Second Amendment right infringement. We're talking about complete gun confiscation, which many of them have admitted they're for. And Joe Biden said in an interview, hell yeah, we're going to come after your guns. That's the one thing we're going to do.
Yeah, it's interesting. What would you be for any type of gun reform? Like if I said, look, you can have your guns. I just want you to go through a 7 to 10 day waiting period, and we do have to vet you, and then you can have your guns. Would that be okay?
Oh, yeah, that's great. I mean, they're doing that now, and that's the normal thing. And there's going to be some laws that common sense gun laws that are in place. But the thing we need to be doing, in my opinion, is enforcing the laws that are on the books now and not making new ones.
Right.
I mean, you talk about banning all semi-automatic rifles.
Right.
That's pretty scary. I mean, you're talking about.
But let me ask you a question, because I grew up with guns and I grew up hunting. Why do you need a semi-automatic weapon?
Well, why do you need a V8 in a car? Why do you really need anything? I mean, personally,
I have a V8 because I have to travel to space.
I do too. That's cool to know. By the way, the episode Vegas, man, that was my favorite episode ever. I was
good.
In 1911, was that yours? Or
yeah, I wanted to do a homage to the Rockford Files.
Yeah.
So we kind of tried to get a little Rockford-esque in there with like the car and the thing, and it was like a fusion of the two things. But
I'm only 26 now, so I remember I was a kid when I first saw the episode. So
yeah, sure.
I watched my dad, and man, it was cool. It's crazy to be talking to you right now.
Well, listen. This is the first time I've ever reached out on social media. I just generally don't do it, but as you know, I got stuck in this quarantine, and so I just said, screw it. I'm reaching out, and then the conversations go different places. Sometimes they're about whatever, meditation or whatever. But I think this is interesting because I think we've forgotten how to talk to each other, and it's really bumming me out. And I think that we have to learn how to talk to each other, and that there's a difference between disliking people and disagreeing with people. But listen, I want to know a little bit more about something. Okay, so in my mind, and somebody made a good point, they thought I was criticizing Trump and not applying any criticism to the Democrats. What he was surprised to hear is that I actually have been a Republican my whole life. Well, and I have worked in Republican politics my whole life.
People
and so did my dad.
That are liberals.
What's that? Well, because they think you're in Hollywood, blah, blah, blah. But, so when I criticize the Republicans, I am criticizing my side.
Yeah.
I'm kind of ashamed of my party.
Well, any self-respecting person should be willing to criticize your own side. If you're not, then that's a problem in itself.
Right. So but this is one of my issues, is like, I can't believe that I think when you start seeing your domestic political opponents as a greater threat than a foreign adversary, I think that's crossing a threshold that's really dangerous. And I think that we kind of did that in 2016. And I kind of think that Trump reaches out to foreign powers and asks them for support. I think that we've gone easy on Russia because there is some messiness there, and we don't know what it is. Maybe there's something, maybe there isn't, I don't know. But I'm like, the Democrats aren't the Republicans' number one enemy. The Republicans' number one enemy is the same as the Democrats' number one enemy, which is foreign adversaries, or things like pandemics, and so I just think we've confused things, and we forget that we're actually in a social contract together. Now, totally different opinions about what to do with it, but I have to say that there has been a dirtiness to the Republicans and a really, really dirty games that I'm not proud of. And I said to myself, I can't be part of that party. I just can't be part of that party. And I believe in a certain set of ideas, and not my loyalty is to the ideas, not to a person. And what I'm seeing with the Republican Party is loyalty to a person before the ideas. And it does feel like a cult of personality. And I just want to ask you one thing, because this is what a lot of my friends who do support Trump, they say this. At the end, what they really like, they love that Trump bugs the shit out of liberals. They just love that. They just think it's great. They just like, look at them. They are freaking out. This is hilarious. And I think it's funny. I get it. But that's not a governing policy place. That's that's a kind of a contextual. That's like a tonal thing. But it's not like you can't govern on that.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, dude, I've never seen people so angry and hating people, other Americans, so much in my lifetime. I think it's dangerous.
It is very dangerous. And you know, if you look at a lot of things that are happening right now, I mean, I'm worried to hell. I mean, you have certain groups in the country. I'm going to keep names out, but you've got certain groups in the country that are going out and hurting people. They're going out to kill and to hurt people, and a lot of them. One in particular, I mean, they're Marxist movements. I mean, and they're self-admitted Marxist movements.
Okay. And now this is good. I like this. Let's get into the data of this.
Yes.
The data points, unfortunately, show that the single greatest domestic threat, the FBI will tell you this, is right-wing terrorism.
Yeah, that's
you don't have Black Lives Matter is not trying to kidnap the governor of Michigan. There's going to be a wing of Black Lives Matter that creates problems. They're going to loot and riot, but predominantly the way law enforcement sees them is that they're not really a factor. They're not a threat on that level.
Yeah.
Right-wing terrorism is the single greatest threat right now, according to the FBI. So why do you think it's left-wing terrorists when there's no data points to support that?
Well, the FBI is lately.
Okay. So we don't agree on the FBI. Okay.
Yeah, and I live in the South. I live in the South of the United States. People would think that if stuff was going on, it'd be going around here. The KKK, they're not out burning, buildings down. They're not out killing people. They're not out killing cops. They're not putting bounties on police officers.
Some of them are cops, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
And by the way, the sheriff in Michigan that was on stage with the guys that got foiled in that plot to kidnap the governor. I mean, one of them was the sheriff.
Well, did you see that one of them was actually a Black Lives Matter supporter? Which really
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Wait, he was involved with the plot? No.
He was involved with the plot. Yeah, and so when I started reading into it,
that sounds like a very confused guy.
Somebody was putting their opinion on it, and they were saying that it wasn't really a left or right wing plot. It was more of a, anti-government plot, is what he said. I
think that's probably true. But there's like a lot of crossover between anti-government stuff and right-wing fanaticism.
Yeah.
And so
there's a lot of
the people that have bombed, killed, murdered, kidnapped that are currently in jail, most of them are right-wing. Most of them. And that's been true. Those are just facts. And I'm not saying the left's not capable of tons of violence, but it hasn't played itself out that way. And who knows what the reasons are, but there seems to be an implicit nod by Trump that he's okay with it. And I think that's really crazy. Crazy.
I don't know. I have a hard time believing that, just because if you've noticed in all the debates and all the interviews, and I'm talking over the past 4 years, they always ask him the same thing. They always say, "Do you denounce white supremacists, white, everything?" And he's denounced it so many times, Joe. I mean, I saw a compilation on YouTube. It was like 22 times. Or something.
He denounces it the way, like, when I got in trouble as a kid and I was told to say sorry, I said sorry. I was like, yeah, okay, I'm sorry, but my sister did it. I didn't really do it. I'm sorry, but So
I don't know.
It's not coming across very clearly.
Yeah.
And so George W. Bush had to deal with this. It came up, and he swapped it. He swatted that thing down really fast. No, not good. Not for us. Not this place. So I disagree. I think that he knows damn well what he's doing, because all Trump supporters are not racist. That is a total fallacy. But all racists are Trump supporters. That's what's weird, is that the established racists, the established white supremacists are Trump supporters. They
has endorsed Joe Biden. And actually Trump.
Who?
David Duke has actually endorsed Joe Biden. Yeah, David Duke. He's whatever leader hoopla of the KKK. Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't heard.
Trump.
If
you go on YouTube, type in, go back, because I think it was like the 80s or 90s.
Yeah, but
announcing him back then before he even ran. I mean, and the one thing that really it makes me laugh every time.
Yeah.
Trump was never a racist until he ran for president, and nobody.
Well, no, you're right, and because I don't think Trump is a classic racist. I think that Trump is. He's reptilian. He's smart as hell. He knows. He feels things. He's got little sensors out there, and he knows that the racial anger on the right it supports him. And so he's very careful to toe the line between kind of somewhat condemning it, but kind of being like, but the guys over there are pretty bad also. And it's just the wrong way to do it. And I think that, I think if he was as successful at apologizing and trying to unify people, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We would, and people wouldn't be in the streets trying to kill each other, because that's the number one thing a president would do. It's like, come on, guys, you're the parent. Being the president, you're the parent in the house. You're like, kids, don't fight. We're one family, and that is not happening. You got a parent who's like whispering to one kid, going, "Your sister hates you. Your sister hates you," and this is, I think, unhealthy. I don't know that I'm going to convince you to vote against Trump, but I want to ask you a question. If Trump loses, are you going to believe the results of the election?
I mean, Joe, that's going to have to depend. I mean, we've seen so much stuff now that's just off the wall. I mean, you've got the Democrats denying that huge things of votes are being thrown in creeks when they've got video evidence of it. I mean, you've got them saying on national.
Yeah, you know what? They found out that most of those were Trump ballots. Well, I mean, most of those were Biden ballots.
I never read that.
Yeah. Well, this is where you have to be really careful. You mentioned YouTube. Mm-hmm. It's not a good place to get information.
Oh no. YouTube is very, very left leaning. They'll ban you. They'll take your account.
Well, but they're banning you. But they're business people. But the truth is, YouTube, if it's left leaning, it's still not a good place to get out. I'm not suggesting you go to the left leaning or right leaning place. I think that YouTube is a really bad place for information. It's primarily an entertainment platform. So they know
Day Job Orchestra disagrees.
and keep them on YouTube as long as possible. And they have an algorithm that says, if you look up, and somebody just mentioned that Trump actually was a racist. He did the Central Park 5 and stuff. If you look up Central Park 5, and you keep looking, they throw you further and further down the rabbit hole until you're finally looking at more and more extreme stuff concerning racism, and it may be left or it may be right, but they steer you in really weird directions. I think YouTube's dangerous. I think you got to be careful. I think that I really do. I think where we get our information is the single greatest source of our problems right now. Because a lot of people read things, see things, and they're like, "Oh, did you know?" And you're like, "That's just not true. Those are not actual facts."
And Joe, I wanna point something out to you that I didn't even know about until about a month ago. I don't know if you play video games at all. So weird start to the topic, but Call of Duty released a new Red Pill trailer. I don't know if you watched it. It's talking about the new
No.
Call of Duty Cold.
I know it just came out.
There's they put snippets of an interview in that trailer from a
Yeah.
guy, Yuri Bezmenov. He was a Russian KGB defector back in the 80s. And that was a very, very censored video when it first came out in the 80s. I'm not old enough to remember when it first came out, so I wouldn't know really
Yeah.
it was, but I've been told it was.
Yeah.
But you can actually go on YouTube and watch the full interview with him.
Okay.
Warned in that interview, he said that the plot to destroy America was to destroy it from within. And what he said was one of the tactics and one of the only ways it would be possible is if you confuse the population by sending them so much information from left, right, everywhere, fake news, and you just berate people's minds with all this information.
Yeah, of course.
They won't be able to draw logical conclusions about, how to protect
Well,
them.
long before him, Abraham Lincoln said the same thing.
Yeah.
Abraham Lincoln said, "America will never be defeated from the outside. If it ever is, it'll be done from the inside."
Exactly.
But on
And
that
they
point,
do it.
on that point, do you realize that there are verbatim talking points that the White House makes that come right out of the Kremlin? Literally verbatim talking points, and
Well,
you know,
before we go into a different topic, I just wanted to make sure, that's happening right now. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're to the left or the right.
But these guys like Senator Ron Johnson and John Kennedy and those guys, they are making Russian talking points. And if you go in and look at some of the fundraising they do, they get their money from some kind of odd third-party sources that are affiliated with Russian groups. So there's no doubt about it, and those are facts that Russia wants Trump to win, and Russia is not our friend. Russia wants Trump to win. Now, you may say China wants Biden to win. We don't know. That may be true also, mostly because Trump's been playing a crazy game.
Actually, did you hear it?
What?
Putin actually made a statement recently about his thoughts on the presidential election. He said that Biden had some values that mirrored, the Soviet Union, and he thought that, he could get along with Biden pretty well if he won the election. Which, I think because
That's an underhanded
because Trump is the scapegoat for all the left wing, everything they think Russia's always a scapegoat. They want to.
Sure, but you remember when Obama? But you remember when Obama got in the office and everybody was like, "He's not even born here."
Yeah.
I mean, listen, my mother watches Fox News nonstop, and she was pretty sure that Obama was the boogeyman and coming to get her and her taxes and stuff. I was like,
as far as taxes go.
What?
He kind of did as far as taxes go.
Well, actually, no, not really. Actually, and this is what's weird, and then I have to get on with somebody else. But what's weird is that the wealth creation under Obama was greater than it was under George W. And so it's pretty interesting. And for some reason, we have these little binary things. If it's just economics, the Democrats don't alter the system that much more than the Republicans, contrary to what everybody thinks. However, if this is a cultural thing, and I think that's really what it is, I think what Trump does is he takes the costume of a culture war, and what he does is he hides a pretty bizarre plan to let the rich get richer. And he's planning on the, guys like you to engage in his support while he's back here doing this and paying off people. And yes, is he the only corrupt person to enter the office? Absolutely not. He may be the most transparently corrupt person ever to enter office. That may be true.
He's going to leave office poorer than when he got in.
What?
Trump is going to be the only president to leave poorer than when he came.
Yeah, but
something happened.
that's because his businesses are failing. He's not the successful businessman. They said if you had taken the $500 million that he inherited from his father and not done anything into it, left it in an S&P or whatever, and he would be far wealthier than if you had ever invested in the Trump Corporation. But hey, look, I'm not going to get into that. But listen, this is what I want to say: is like, look, everybody votes for who they want to vote for. I personally would love to hear you say that you're going to accept the results of the election eventually, maybe not right away, but we'll see. But also, do you think that having these poll watchers is a good idea? Because I'm personally offended that there's poll watchers, because I think that is designed to intimidate people, and I think that's crazy, and I don't think that should be allowed.
I'm going to accept the terms of the election no matter what, because when the election's finished, what are you going to do? I mean, how are you not going to accept them? Are you going to do what Hillary did and write a book and be upset for 4 years? I mean, are you going to go protest? I mean, you can do those kind of things, but at the end of the day, you still will accept it. Just like the liberals had to accept that Trump was their president. They might not want to admit it.
Or Al Gore had to accept George Bush when it went to the Supreme Court. So,
but yes, I have no problem saying I will accept no matter what happens. But at the same time, if things do start coming out, kind of like they are now, where there's going to be a lot of election fraud. I mean, it's only natural when you have millions upon millions being cast by mail, and they've got tons of different records to show this. But you see, it's just like that information thing we were talking about earlier. There are some people that say it doesn't exist, and some people offer sheets of data to prove it.
But let me ask you a question: What you're going to be told all sorts of crazy stuff, because this is my prediction.
Well, I'm going to see crazy stuff.
I love this. I'm now laying my prediction on tape, so I'm going to get myself into trouble because it will turn out totally different. This is the most likely scenario as I see it. The race might be a lot tighter than people think, because a lot of people don't want to admit they're voting for Trump because they don't want to admit it. They don't want to be shamed into it. People feel like they're the recipients of a lot of anger and hate when they say they support Trump. So we may not really know the actual level of support for Trump. The other thing is, I see this election happening, and the initial physical vote in that people go on the day of the election going for Trump. And then I see the mail-in and the absentees and everything else adding up, and probably, I think, going for Biden. And then what I think you're going to see is Trump telling you all sorts, anything. He's going to tell you anything he wants. He's going to lay so much garbage down your throat and tell you about ballots in a ditch and everything else. And it's going to be up to you to decide whether you're going to believe this stuff or not. Because I want you to appreciate one thing. Trump is personally responsible for $500 million in the next couple of years. Personally liable for that money. He does not have the assets to cover it. Secondly, he has, and this is kind of interesting, because actually the Manhattan District Attorney, who weirdly enough is married to my cousin, so I think he's my cousin, he is going after him for tax fraud and banking fraud. And I think there's a chance that Trump could go to jail. So when you're Donald Trump and everything's kind of like you've been able to do this your whole life, and suddenly you're looking at potentially going broke and potentially going to jail, I think he will do anything. And I know that you probably don't think he's the greatest guy in the world, because not that many people do, but I think you're aware that he is capable of doing some pretty crazy stuff. I think he's going to do crazy stuff. And I think what's going to happen is that between the election and the inauguration, he's going to try to do really, really crazy stuff. And what's going to happen is you're going to get guys like Pence and everybody else talking about invoking the 25th Amendment, which is taking him out for reasons of health and sanity. Yeah, because they're going to say to themselves, Christ, he's trying to sink the ship. He lost the election. He's trying to sink the ship, but we're all going to go down with him. We got to stop him. And also, we have lives after this. Do we want to sync with him? No. Let's get rid of him. And I see things getting really, really weird. Now, that's just my scenario because I'm in Hollywood and I think it would make a good screenplay. But maybe it turns out that way. So who knows? But just be aware.
You have to agree with me though. 2020's been really, really, really weird already.
Cuckoo.
Yeah,
Crazy.
it's been wild.
This is the weirdest. Oh, so weird. So weird. I can't wait for all this to be over. And by the way, this would be a difficult thing for even the most effective president of the world dealing with this plague. And I just happen to think that it's even made worse by him because you and I disagree on him. But listen, here's the thing. Just remember you're an American first. You're a Republican second. I don't know what the hell I am, but I'm an orphan. I'm neither a Democrat or a Republican, but I'm an American first. So hopefully we all get that. We remember that. We'll see what the election does. It was really cool being able to talk to you, and
Yes,
I think this is awesome that people can talk.
Yes, sir.
More people need to be able to just talk.
And we may not agree on everything, but
No.
you know, yeah, I agree. You know, there has to be more discussion. We can't have this just, you know, oh, you don't think like me, I'm gonna punch you in the face or burn down your
Right.
business.
Yeah.
And
But I also told you my motto is